Hello, everyone. Welcome to one of the final workshops for AAPI Heritage Month for the month of May. Welcome to the Partnerships for College Success. This will be led by Dr. Rick Bonus in partnership with our AANAPISI program here at Highline College. So I appreciate all of you for taking the time to come and share this space with us and gain and give more knowledge to the community. So thank you all for coming. Before we begin, I'd like to give a short introduction for Dr. Rick Bonus, just to give some background information for those who may not be familiar with his work, and then I'll let him have the floor. So thank you again, and then here's my introduction. All right, so Dr. Rick Bonus is primarily a professor of American Ethnic Studies at the University of Washington, Seattle, but he's also had strong interest in the conjunctions among ethnic studies, American studies, Pacific Islander studies, and Southeast Asian studies, particularly as they deal with the historical and contemporary phenomenon of migration, transnationalism, interdisciplinary work, and multicultural pedagogy. Rick teaches courses pertaining to U.S. multiracial society, Filipino American history and culture, ethnographies of Southeast Asia and Southeast Asian American, and education in relationship to race. His forthcoming book is based on an ethnography of underrepresented students whose college experiences become generative sites for critiquing and transforming university schooling. He has been involved in curation and sustenance of several UW mentorship programs that specifically target the retention and eventual graduation of students who identify as or as allies with Pacific Islanders, Chicanas, Latinx, Native Americans, African Americans, African diasporic people. He also works on advocacy for underrepresented faculty, curriculum transformation, and nurturing community linkages with many groups. He was formerly the president of the Association for Asian American Studies. I know the first time that I met Dr. Bonus was during a Pacific Islander outreach program at UW, where he talked about his experience as a professor. The first words out of his mouth was, "Please come closer because I have a sexy bedroom voice and it will be hard to hear him." He told us how there was a need for more Pacific Islanders in college and that if we came to UW and visited his office, he would treat us to lunch. As a young Pacific Islander, feeling wanted in the school was a new experience, and let alone being welcomed and offered food by a professor or someone in a position of power. Now that I've graduated and working in education, I've always wondered how he ran so many student programs, mentored several students through college and grad school, on top of his role as a research professor. He has been an amazing guide and navigator for several students and is a role model for several of his mentees, such as myself, who we try to aspire to become. So without further ado, please, Professor Rick Wellness, go ahead.
Thank you, Nestor. Oh my gosh, that was such a generous introduction. The book that you mentioned there is actually out now, and I'm gonna talk about it in a little while. And yes, I've known you since you were in high school. Oh my goodness. So yeah, we've come a long way, huh? And now look at you. All right, so thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, May, and thank you, Nestor, for inviting me. It's an honor. I always enjoy doing these kinds of workshops because it's not only just me that's participating in it, and you know, we do get a lot of energy from different sources in these kinds of events. And so the lockdown will not prevent us from continuing to do these things. Yeah, thank you to especially my students who are joining us today. And also thank you to community members who are also joining us. I'm gonna show you the agenda that we have for today. We're gonna start first with, thank you. There's the book. So it just came out in March, at the end of March. And that I'm gonna talk about it today. That wonderful, beautiful cover is by a former student of mine named Toka Valu, who's an artist. And it's sort of, I'm gonna talk more about it, but at least for its cover right now, I'm gonna say that it's, you know, I always, you know, I'm so blessed to have someone like Toka do the cover because it's his rendition of a creation myth from Tonga. So you don't actually see the pregnant woman from on top of the cover, but actually, then it's a portion of a larger art piece in which there's a pregnant woman on top, and then there's a sea monster in the bottom, which I think the book designer, you know, kind of liked. So anyway, I want to acknowledge the land that we're on, the Native American soil that we get nurtured by, in terms of, you know, everything that we do. I want to say I have one ground rule that's kind of simple and basic, which is just if you can practice respect, right? And just be respectful to everyone who's participating in today's event. I'm gonna do a little presentation, like a little slideshow for the next about 15 to 20 minutes. And then I'm gonna do an activity after that, which will be some kind of multiple choice, true or false questions, just to sort of I don't mean to lecture all throughout. So this is going to be like an interactive part of the presentation. And then we're going to break out into discussion. And so that's also key. You know, I'd like us to spend more time on discussion so that we can be much more organic about these things. And so what I encourage you to do is to, as you're listening to my presentation, and if some of you have already read parts of my book or the rest of the book, I would like to encourage you to find yourselves, you know, as we are doing this presentation, try to find some connection or meaning in the things that I'll be covering or I'll be talking about. And then if you have questions, write them down so that so that you can be reminded later on to bring whatever you want to bring up in terms of the topics that I'll be focusing on. Write them down so that you can ask them later. I'd just like to remind you that this presentation is not so much about laying out a blueprint, like very specific strategies on how to be successful in college partnerships. My intention here is to give you an overall sort of world view or big context for why college partnerships are critical, especially in terms of dealing with underrepresented and disadvantaged students. I'm gonna take a look, I'm gonna show you or cover several key items from the book that will hopefully initiate, you know, deeper discussions about college partnerships for success. So this is not a blueprint. If you want, I can sort of have a text version of this presentation as a handout. I'm gonna maybe give it to Nestor so that we can upload it into the AANAPISI website, and then you can download it from there. So yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna start out with a little bit of a description of the book, and then I'm gonna proceed for like what I think are the critical points as outlined in the book. So yes, next slide, please, Nestor. Thank you. All right, so the book is called The Ocean in the School. The book took about more than 10 years to do because it's an ethnography. So an ethnography, what we mean by doing an ethnography is we're taking an account of or selected accounts of relationships or interactions that I had with the subjects of the study, in this case, mostly Pacific Islander students. I myself am not trained in education. So I'm looking at schooling from a couple of disciplines that are not necessarily related to education. I'm an American ethnic studies scholar and I'm trained as a social scientist. And so my degree is not in education, but at the same time, I'm looking at education from what we call an American ethnic studies perspective or background, in the sense that we're looking for issues of power and inequality and resistance, right? So those are the three sort of key points for any scholar in ethnic studies, especially US-based ethnic studies. It's a set of reflections about what it means to be underrepresented as a student, and what it means to be underrepresented in a place that doesn't value you as much, or doesn't even know about you in the case of Pacific Islanders, right? Or has a demeaning sort of imagination about you in a place like the University of Washington. So you can, you know, I don't have any hang up at all in sort of making it clear that I'm studying the very school that I teach in. Especially because the gist of the book is not so much to perform a criticism of the university per se, even though we do that, but mostly to focus on what things could be done or what kinds of resistances can be possible, as demonstrated by the students that I interviewed in the book. So it's like more so in terms of thinking about what strategies can we think about when it comes to being underrepresented in a fairly large school, in the context of an oceanic sensibility, because that's what the Pacific Islander students did and had. Okay, so I'm thinking of like maybe like listing just the three big points, the key elements partnering for college success that I outlined in the book. Um, and Nestor, need to go back a little bit. Sorry. Um, what do students and teachers do to succeed in a place that's set up for them to fail? So that's sort of the guiding fundamental question for the book, right? What do you do when you're stuck in a place that's designed not according to your culture, or that's designed in a way um, that if you practice your culture, you're not going to win the game, right? So what do you do when you're faced with that situation? So that's a big part of the book. The other question is, who do we blame when students fail? And so this is mostly like definitely connected to the first question, because I do have a chapter on students who left the university, right? And so what lessons can we learn in terms of engaging with college dropping out? Yeah, so that's a sort of a key part of the logic that I'm trying to develop, and start from the first question. And the third one is, given those first two things, what do we do? How can schooling be transformed? In this case, I'm reversing the equation. So the students and I are reversing the equation from thinking about it is the students who should be changing or who should be transformed, but rather it is the school that needs to be transformed. So the angle of intervention here is not so much making the students conform or assimilate to a larger culture that is not theirs, but actually to make their school be transformed so that it doesn't continue to practice a devaluing of students who do not belong to the same culture in which that school was built upon. Yeah. So those are the three big questions that guide the book and that are guiding us today. Yeah. Okay, so if you go to the next slide, so I have a couple of takeaways in terms of responding to that question, right? And I know the book is long, and I'm just doing a little bit of a summary here so that we can at least grapple with some key sort of items that address the things that I pointed out in the book. So the first one is that explains a kind of a context. So when we recruit, we do a lot of recruitment of diverse students, especially in a school like the University of Washington, and I'm sure in Highline as well, right? But I argue that we do a lot of heavy recruitment of different kinds of students, particularly students who are not members of dominant cultures, but at the same time, our curriculum and teaching have remained the same. And so in this case, what I'm trying to present here is a criticism of diversity, right? In the sense that we have no trouble trying to encourage students to come into our school, and yet the ways in which we do school have not adapted to the new people that are entering our schools. There are huge numbers of non-white students entering our schools, non-rich students entering our schools, non-traditional students entering our schools. But most of everything that our schools have been doing for the past 100 or so years have remained the same. And so that's why we wonder in the book, why do we need to wonder why students fail, right? When, as a matter of fact, we haven't changed anything to support those new students who are coming into schools. So that's the first takeaway, right? The second one, we tend to blame students when they fail in school, but schools don't usually get blamed when students fail in school. So how do we measure success? So the second one is sort of this whole idea that there's a lot of cultural deficiency blaming or cultural deficiency perspectives when it comes to student failure. It's the student's fault. That's why they failed. I'm not saying that that students have no responsibility at all when they quote unquote fail in school. So I ask about, or the students and I, at least in this book, ask about who gets to be blamed, when students don't do well in the classroom, right? And in relation to that, what does it mean to be successful, or what does it mean to be unsuccessful in the classroom, right? How do we measure success? Students who are straight A students, do we call them successful students just because they got straight A's? And the same, and the corollary, right? Students who get zeros, right? Do we call them failures just because they got failures? Is it their failure? Or should we also think about school failure, right? So that's sort of like, again, a way of reversing the equation in terms of analyzing, in this case, student success and failure. And then the third one is that we assume that knowledge comes from one source. And this is very common, I think, which is the teacher, right? Yet students bring to our classrooms so many things that get unrecognized or undervalued or unacknowledged. The term for this in education theory is funds of knowledge. So meaning that we oftentimes forget that students bring into the classroom so many things that go untapped, right? So many sources of knowledge and insight and illumination that don't get voice at all in the classroom, especially because the teachers don't ask them, right? We always assume that teachers are the only ones who are fully knowledgeable about a topic in the classroom, and oftentimes they are, right? But my contention is that there are many centers in the classroom. It's not just the teacher. It is true that teachers who teach classes are the most experienced in that topic, precisely because they're the teachers, right? So they should be knowing everything, right? But at the same time, there's this unilinear view of sort of learning that happens in most classrooms, in which there's only one direction of learning. It's as if the teachers are not learning at all from the students or when they interact with students, right? And so that's a big takeaway, because that's one of the biggest lessons that the students sort of share in the book, is that they do have a lot of knowledge. They actually taught me, and they taught their other teachers all these knowledges about Pacific Islander histories and cultures that would not have surfaced had they not advocated for them, and had the teachers been ignorant or devaluing of them, right? And so for the next one, so the key thing here then is how do we transform schools, right? And so look at that. Look, right? My way of doing this is to sort of give you a little set of I don't want to call them hints because I don't want to be vague, but at the same time, I want us to be more proactive in terms of making this organic. And so one big lesson, at least for the book, in terms of transforming schools, is to know first who we are, right? Know yourselves, know your teacher, know your school, right? So we're gonna play a little game to sort of do that. So in the spirit of saying that before we even do any kind of transformation of schools, we should know ourselves. And so Nestor will tell us how we play that game.
Yeah, so if everyone who has a additional, I guess, device like a cell phone or iPad or another screen on your computer, if you could please log into poev.com/DEDZ, and then we'll pull up the game, and give us a thumbs up or something on the chat letting us know that you're on. I can't really see right now. I'm gonna pull it up.
So they go to their phone. Oh, I think
I'm
you should show that screen too while they're doing it.
Yep, hang on.
I know my students know about these games. I mean, at least they know it through the quizzes that they play in my class. So, but this one will sort of like, it's not like a punishing game. It's not a way to test our knowledge, but at least to make us acquainted with sort of the worlds that we inhabit. Yeah. Or not, or if not, Nestor, you can text it in the chat.
Oh,
The log on
people see
address.
the screen?
I can see the screen for the game, but oh, there you go. Is that the name of the site?
Yep.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Jessica. Can I get like a show of hands, thumbs up, if we're able to get on?
If they're able to get on. If not, they can also answer live, right? You know, can they do that, Nestor?
Yeah, they're gonna unmute themselves or even put in the chat box.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They can also answer in the chat box if they want.
All right.
We're gonna give you like maybe 30 seconds more, right? Or maybe even a minute to log on. Because I know when I was doing this, I was like, oh, well, I'm kind of slow. So in the book, the first chapter is precisely what we're doing now. It's like getting acquainted with the world that the students inhabited, or at least the kinds of knowledges out there that we may or may not have been familiar with in terms of, in this case, Pacific Islanders and Southeast Asian American students. Yeah. So it's like, who are they and what do we know about them? And it's a good first step in thinking about, how we may transform any school, which is like, knowing the context first, knowing our universe, or knowing our ocean in this case, right, for the students, knowing how the ocean navigates us, or finding ways in which we can understand ourselves first before we or even understand the schools first and our worlds before we even ask questions about it, right?
All right. Shall we try the first question?
Should we try the first question? Okay, maybe like, we can, well, it's both a practice and it's nothing serious. We'll just, okay, let's start with the first one. Southeast Asian American students may generally be characterized as, oh, we don't have letters, yeah? Or we do?
No, on
Oh,
the app they pick.
oh, in their app, okay. The same as any other Asian American students, that's the first one. You can pick one, right? Pick the best one.
Yep.
Related to but different from other Asian American students. Completely different from other Asian American students. Equal to other Asian American students, or in opposition to other Asian American students. So that's the last one, right? Oh, sorry. Oh, we revealed already. Wow. Okay. Oh, the poll is locked. Nestor,
What was that?
it says that the poll is locked. Taya said. Did you lock it?
No, shouldn't be.
Oh, I think when you moved on to the answers, it
Oh yeah,
locked the question, right?
yeah, just
Okay.
for that question.
Yeah. So let's wait for a couple more seconds for the next one. Yeah. So in this case, the correct answer is related to but different from other Asian American students. So some people think, right, that Southeast Asian American students are the same as other Asian American students. So that's kind of wrong, yeah? They are also not completely different from other Asian American students. They share a lot of things in common, geographically based ancestry, religion, language, maybe, right? They are not equal to other Asian American students. Well, in a lot of ways, right? In terms of educational attainment, rates of poverty, representation in the media or in the government, right? And definitely they're not in opposition. I don't think we can find a whole lot of Southeast Asian American students who are in opposition to other Asian American students. So in this case, the best answer is related to, but different from other Asian American students. And most of you got it right. So well done. Okay, next question. Nestor, we're gonna spend a little bit more time having them answer. Yeah. Oi. Oh, we got an actual, wow. Kathy. All right. Which of the following are not Southeast Asian American students? So this is another multiple choice, yeah? Okay, let's give them time, yeah? Laotians, Vietnamese, Cambodians, Hmongs, or Japanese? According to the US Census, okay? Which of the following are not Southeast Asian American students or Southeast Asian students? Laotians, Vietnamese, Cambodians, Hmongs, or Japanese? according to the United States Census. We all know that these categories are very fluid, yes, and so just give us that, sort of heads up, yeah, that a lot of categories change, or all categories change over time and place. Which of the following are not Southeast Asian students? Laotians, Vietnamese, Cambodians, Hmongs, or Japanese? Is that good? For some reason, it locks, yeah?
Oh yeah, so sorry. I tried to change the timer, but it gives you 20 seconds to answer before it
Oh,
locks. So try to
sorry.
do as quickly as possible.
Okay,
Unfortunately, we can't change it on this end right now.
be as quick as you can then for the next ones. Okay, so this is a little bit easy, right? So Japanese definitely not considered Southeast Asian students, right? In the census, Japanese are classified under Asian, right? Under the category Asian. And in certain cases, when there's only one category called Asian, then all of these ethnicities are considered Asian, but not all Asian categories are Southeast Asian. Okay, so that if you have a question, just raise your hand, or I don't know. Can they just speak up, Nestor?
Yeah,
Yeah.
feel free to unmute yourselves. We're using these questions as discussion based. So you have questions about the question itself or what we're talking about. Please feel free to unmute yourself or use the chat box.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Okay, you have 20 seconds for this next question. Oi, Kathy, very nice. Diana, M, Monkey, Ayana. All right, true or false? Most Asian Americans tend to graduate high school and get a bachelor's degree than other races. 20 seconds. Well, this is
You can have,
easy. True or
yeah, you can
false?
have 20 seconds. Trust me.
20
So
seconds
20 seconds, the bottom of the corner.
right now. True or false? More Asian Americans tend to graduate from high school and get a bachelor's degree than other races. Is that true or is that false? So you have 20 seconds to do that.
Thumbs up.
Is it?
Yep,
Oh, that was quick. Okay.
review.
Reveal. The answer is true. Asian Americans, as one large group, tend to graduate at a higher rate than in high school and college than other races. That is a known fact, right? If you look at a lot of statistics, right? So there's a lot of, and this tends to be equated with the model minority status, right? Because there's this assumption that because compared to the other races, especially white races, Asian Americans tend to not only graduate at a higher rate, but also at a faster rate from high school and then from college. They're assumed to be high achieving, minorities, right? The highest achieving minority group, actually, right? And sometimes even in certain locations or certain cities, especially, sometimes higher than white groups, right? Or European American groups. And so it is true that as a big category, Asians command, high numbers in these kinds of education statistics. Yeah. Very good. Thank you. And let's take a look at the leaderboard. Oh, Kathy, you're doing well. All right. Crystal, Jess, guest 694. All right. Very good. Thank you. Again, if you have questions, let me know. Okay, true or false? Another one. Southeast Asian Americans have the lowest high school graduation and bachelor's degree rates, even lower than both Latinos um, and African Americans. Okay, there you go. Is that true or false? Southeast Asian Americans have the lowest graduation, high school graduation, and bachelor's degree rates, even lower than both Latinos and African Americans. So you have 20 seconds. Yeah. True or false? So let's see how people do. There you go. Oh, wow. So some of you said, half of you said, well, more than half said true, and then slightly lower than half said false. Well, the answer is true. And I know it sounds contradictory, but this is the part in which a lot of scholars, education scholars, and program administrators, like those who are involved with AANAPISI, for example, are very adamant about removing or at least disaggregating the big category called Asian American, because this statistic gets missed out on, right? So a lot of people assume that Southeast Asian Americans are also graduating at the same rates as other Asian Americans when it comes to high school graduation and bachelor's degree um, sort of graduation rates, right? And you can see here that once you lump Southeast Asian Americans into the larger group called Asian Americans, you're not gonna know. You're not even gonna help them, right? Because, or they're not gonna be helped by most kinds of funding agencies for schooling, for education, just because they're thought of as people who are already high achievers. Why should we be helping them, right? And so this is a big sort of a big issue for Southeast Asian, not only for Southeast Asian Americans, but those who support, the well-being of Southeast Asian Americans, especially students, because oftentimes teachers get shocked. It's like, oh, I thought you were supposed to be a high-performing student, right? And they're not, right? Because of a whole lot of different factors, yeah? And so we have to be very, very careful about it. So a lot of Southeast Asian American students enter college, right? With their teachers having the wrong impression of them or stereotyping them as one of those Asian American kids who are actually doing well, right? And so this is a big, big disservice for them. So we should, marshal all of our powers to sort of convince people that this is something that we need to deal with. Yeah? All right. Thank you. We have Kathy going first. Oh, Monkey is now number 2. Wow. Thank you. All right, true or false? In order for Southeast Asian American students to get more financial and academic support, they should check the box that says Asian. Oh, this is easy, right? After what I just talked about. So go ahead, Nestor. Let them answer. So you have 20 seconds. True or false? In order for these students to get more financial and academic support, they should check the box that says Asian. Yeah. Sometimes there's only one box that says Asian, and there's no box for Southeast Asians. So should Southeast Asian American students check this box? Poll locked. All right, very good. Don't. Yeah. If I were a Southeast Asian American student, I will check the box that says other, because if you check the box that says Asian, then you're not going to be provided with opportunities to get support, like financial aid or academic support, right? And so there are still programs, many programs that exist in which the category Asian is the only category to be marked by people from this group, from this very large but very heterogeneous or diverse group, right? And so Southeast Asian American students fall into the cracks, right? Because they don't get the kind of support that they need and that they deserve, right? Especially because they are, well, definitely because they are subsumed under a larger category that misrepresents them, okay, or doesn't do justice to who they are.
Dr. Bodes,
Yes.
I have a quick question
Yes.
about that. Do you know
Yeah.
if Southeast Asian students are aware of this? Because I know that especially for Southeast Asians, they have a high number of first-gen students. So do they know to not check Asian?
Right. I think they should know if they're aware of the politics of their category, but if they're not, and I don't blame them if they're not aware. If they're not, then the advisor should be advising them, right? Or even at least anybody who's helping them fill out the forms, right? Or at least they should seek help in filling out their forms. And again, I'm not assuming that they're ignorant or whatever. Because oftentimes we grow up not knowing these things. Our teachers don't know about it. Yeah? Is that your experience too, Deborah?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's like, high school counselors maybe don't know about this, or maybe even high school or elementary school, or even parents, don't know about this kind of problem with aggregation, right? Problem with the big category. And so, And oftentimes forms would be deceitful in ways that they don't provide other choices for students, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll pick that, they'll tick that box only because that's the only box that's available, right? And so I would advise to students to at least maybe point it out to another person or tick the box that says other, so that hopefully you can be counted as someone who's different from other Asian Americans, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think also because some of them are afraid they might be like traitors to their own race, right? You know, like, of course I'm Asian. Why would I even discredit myself? You know, I mean, discredit that, right? And so they feel like they don't want to be, they don't want to feel guilty or feel bad that, they're calling themselves not Asian, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
not the same. You're not calling yourself not Asian. You're just calling yourself a particular kind of Asian. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Thank you.
Dr.
Yes.
Bonus, this is Meg
Yes.
Lucas.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting, such a dilemma, because from the federal standpoint, in terms of tracking of students, the reason we're in AANAPISI is because we meet a certain threshold of students
Correct.
that are enrolled.
Correct.
So we get funding
Right.
on that. So it is, what a dilemma.
It is a dilemma, right? And it's something that again can be misinterpreted, right? These students are I myself am not encouraging students to tell people to not call them. I'm not encouraging these students to tell people to not refer to them as Asians, right? They are. It's just that they're a different kind of Asian, right? And you're right, like a lot of programs depend on particular counts of people, right? And if you don't have that count, then you're not going to make it to the grant, right?
Well,
Thank
I thank you for actually making this point, because this is information that we need to be communicating back to, our congressional folks too, that this is one of the barriers we create, right? Because,
Absolutely, absolutely.
thank you.
Yes. Well, at UW, Filipinos, for example, some university forms, or in the past, right? Because this has been fixed a little bit right now. Some some Filipinos demanded a couple of years ago to not be counted as Asian, precisely because of this reason, right? And so the provost said, well, okay, how do you want to be counted? Do you want me to put you under the Pacific Islander category? And the Filipinos said, no. The Filipinos, American students said, no, don't put us there. Not because we don't want to be called Pacific Islander, but because you're gonna skew the numbers, right? It's gonna make it appear that there are more Pacific Islanders than usual in the school, because Filipinos were 1,000 and Pacific Islanders who are non-Filipino are only about 250, right? So that category will show an increase in number all of a sudden. And so Filipino American students were very, very careful in not being used to inflate certain numbers, right? And so they ended up advocating to have a category all their own, which is called Filipino, right? Or Filipina, right? Or in this case, Filipinx, especially because they do have population characteristics that are different from other Asian Americans and from other Pacific Islanders and from Southeast Asian Americans as well, right? So the UW is one of those schools in which it regularly keeps track of a separate box that says Filipinx, yeah, which is nice. All right, thank you, everybody. Let's go to the next one. Kathy, wow, very nice. True or false? In order for all population groups in the US to be successful, all they need to do is to work hard and practice good cultural values. Okay, you have 20 seconds. In order for all population groups to be successful, all they need to know is to work hard and practice good cultural values. About 10 seconds left. All right, the poll is locked. False. Oh, wow, very good. This is my parents believe in this. And I always have different like little debates with them about this because, and this is a very American sort of uniquely US orientation, which is like all you need is hard work, right? And we all know better now that it's not only about hard work. I'm not saying that we should not work hard or that we should not practice good cultural values. I think we should, but that's not all we need, right? And so this statement ignores structural barriers, right? It ignores racism, yeah. It ignores lack of opportunities, lack of resources, right? It ignores the barriers faced by non-elite groups in the US. They don't exist on the same level, on the same playing field as the other people who are more advantaged, right? So this is like, we call this the American educational mythology of success, right? The secret to succeeding well in college or even in any level of education is just to work hard and to practice good cultural values. And I think that this is a disservice to a lot of different population groups that experience different kinds of barriers or advantages, right, than other groups. Well done, everybody. That's good. So this is a false claim. And we have, wow, very nice. Consistently the 10. Okay, true or false? For many Southeast Asian American families, the priority is survival rather than education. You have 20 seconds to say whether that's true or false. For many Southeast Asian American families, the priority is survival rather than education. The first priority, I think this question should say, the first priority is survival rather than education. About 10 seconds left. All right, it's locked. And the answer is true. All right. Some people will read this as an insult, right? It's not true that Southeast Asian Americans do not value education. They do. It's just that a lot of them are in poverty. And so the biggest emphasis in among a lot of families whose background is Southeast Asian American, the biggest priority is survival, right? And I think this is in relationship to when teachers or counselors scold students for not doing well in school or for not being in school or for dropping out of school, right? A lot of people in a conventional way think that the students should be focusing on education. They don't realize that at home the focus is on surviving. Very basic sort of necessity for a lot of families in poverty, right? Again, it is not to say that they don't prioritize or value going to school. They do. It's just that which one do you attend to first, right? I mean, it's the same sort of catch-22 with poor kids who go to school, right? I mean, a hungry child cannot learn, right? A child with an empty stomach cannot learn. That's why in our mentorship program at UW for Pacific Islanders, we always have food. Not because, a lot of us are also, a lot of students cannot afford good food most of the time, right? And so we always think that if we ever have to study, we cannot be studying effectively or efficiently or successfully if we're hungry, right? And so hunger is always a big sort of element in terms of succeeding in school, right? So I guess this is an easy one to answer, yeah? The priority is survival. Thank you. All right. Kathy, Monkey, Diana, Jess. All right, and D and Guest. All right, true or false? According to the most recent census, Southeast Asian Americans are the fastest growing population among all US ethnic groups. 20 seconds. True or false? According to the most recent census polls, Southeast Asian Americans are the fastest growing population among all US ethnic groups, which might be changing too, you think, Okay, poll is locked. And the answer is true, correct. This is from the most recent, and and this is cited in many AANAPISI reports too, right? Southeast Asians are the fastest growing population among all US ethnic groups. There's a lot of sort of continuing influx of Southeast Asians into the US, right? So that's true. Very good. So again, this is one piece of information that if people think that issues regarding quote unquote non-success of certain Asian American groups is a thing that's gonna go away at some point, it's gonna be, we will have more people from these population groups coming into our schools. And so we need to attend to their issues or else we'll be inundated with even worse issues as we move on, because that population is not shrinking, right? It's actually growing. It's the fastest growing population among all US ethnic groups. Thank you. All right. Ooh, very good people. All right. Oh, wow, Kimia, very nice. True or false? Immigrants are about the same people, the same as refugees. They share similar experiences and their differences are very minimal. So immigrants and refugees, are they the same or are they different? True or false? Respond. 18 seconds left. They're about the same. They share similar experiences and their differences with refugees are minimal. Differences in terms of poverty rates, educational attainment. The answer is false. Very good. Oh, nobody answered true. Wow, thank you. Very nice. Well, we all know, right, that many people tend to lump them together. They're quite different, right? Refugees, immigrants come from, regular people, right, who migrate or who immigrate into the US, for example, right? They're not the same as people who come from conditions of war, right? Or conditions of post-war, conditions of trauma after the war. They don't come from conditions of removal, right? Or resettlement. So their experiences are vastly different. They're not minimal differences. They're vastly different than immigrants, regular immigrants, right? And so this is a mistake that many, teachers, for example, or counselors, or even administrators in universities tend to lump them together. And so we always want to remind them that, don't treat them as the same. They come from different places. They come from different experiences, right? Immigrants usually can go back to where they originated from. Many refugees don't even have a place to go back to. And so that's a big qualitative difference already. So again, in terms of trying to understand, right, the large context from within which these people come in, we need to be very, very conscious and careful about recognizing the fact that they are qualitatively different from other people in our history. Thank you. Very good. Okay. Wow. Poverty is the top reason why many Southeast Asian Americans do not go to or do well in school. And what is the second reason why? This is multiple choice, so do it quickly because it's only 20 seconds, yeah? What is the second reason why? Limited English proficiency, lack of drive and will to succeed, overpopulation, education is not a priority, you know that already, or limited intelligence. Answer quickly. Limited English, lack of drive, overpopulation, education is not a priority, or is it about limited intelligence? Nestor, are you taking the challenge or no? Or you're not?
No, I know the answers.
You know the answer. Limited, correct. Limited English proficiency, yes. The other ones are mostly, if you notice, the other reasons are very, it blames the people, right? So we try to discourage that. As education scholars, we try to move away from cultural deficiency reasons, right? Lack of drive, definitely they do have drive. Most of them have a drive to succeed. Overpopulation, again, it makes the problem internal, right? education is not a priority. We know that that's not true. And limited intelligence is not only begs the question of how do you define intelligence, but also how do you measure intelligence, right? And so that cannot be a second reason why. So in AANAPISI reports, you'll see this, right? Limited English proficiency is a big barrier, right, for a lot of Southeast Asian Americans in terms of college or even high school performance, right? And so many programs are institutionalized to engage with this issue, right, in many different ways. Thank you. Cool. Oh, wow. All right. And what is the third reason why? So this is going to be quick again. Yeah. Third reason. So poverty, limited English. Okay, here you go. Limited intelligence. Here you go. Lack of motivation, lack of access to resources, too much attention paid to participating in activities, lack of a family member who went to college. Oh, you have about 15 seconds. Limited intelligence, lack of motivation, lack of access to resources, or too much attention paid to practicing the culture, lack of family member who went to college. Very good. Again, a called from AANAPISI reports, right? So third reason why many Southeast Asian American students do not succeed is because they lack access to resources, or we don't provide them enough access to resources, right? Limited intelligence is a cultural deficit model. Lack of motivation is also from the cultural deficit model. Too much attention paid to practicing culture should not be a punishment, right? And then lack of a family member. This is actually true, but at the same time, it's not the third reason why, right? Although it is true that there are many family members who have no experience in going to a U.S. college, to a U.S.-based college, right? So that could be probably the fourth reason why. But lack of access is a very key element in enabling, in trying to support students who don't do well in school, right? Stay with the scores, Nestor. I want to see who's scoring well. Not to, shame others, but yeah. Wow. All right. Some of them I notice are my students. Very good, people. Well, you're listening well in class. Fantastic. Thank you. All right. According to a US Census study, the AAPI population in the US is predicted to increase by what percent by 2060? Oh my gosh, that's 40 years from now. All right, so take a look at the percentage points, okay? In 20 seconds, 50%, 100%, 125%, 150%, or 175%. Oh my goodness. AAPI, right? Asian American Pacific Islander. Large group, very heterogeneous, diverse group. It's going to increase for sure by at least 50%. Correct, 125%. Wow, you know this. I didn't know this from before, but yeah, it's good that you did your research. It's good. They're predicted to increase by 125% by 2060, right? So again, this sort of presents to us sets of opportunities to make us not ignore that there are important issues that we need to deal with the AAPI groups, right? Because they're gonna be here. They're gonna be with us, right? In our society, they'll be living with us. We will be living with them. And we need to work together so that these issues are addressed and not ignored. Okay, thank you. I think we're gonna move on to Pacific Islanders, yeah? Very nice, wow, okay. The 48 ethnicities that comprise the AAPI population in the US are very diverse in terms of what? At least one, okay, the best one. Socioeconomic class, language, religion, migration history, or all the answers specified here. They comprise, these ethnicities that comprise this large group called AAPS are very diverse in terms of what? Socioeconomic class, language, oh, locked. religion, migration history, or all the answers specified here? And your answer is very good. Thank you. You can see the diversity here, right? They're very diverse in all kinds, on all levels. If you pick socioeconomic class, that's also a correct answer in some way, right? But that's not the only diversity that they have. They're also very diverse in terms of language and religion and migration history. So all of the answers specified here, right? So we're not only dealing with a population that's getting larger and larger, but also a population that's going to be very, very non-homogeneous. They're not going to be the same as each other, right? They're not going to be like, you cannot imagine them as one-dimensional, right? Or only in terms of like a commonality, right? It's going to be harder and harder to find commonalities across these 48 ethnicities because they're so different from each other, right? In all of these cases, language, religion, migration history, class, even like educational attainment, for example, if we keep on doing it, doing our educational systems the way that we are right now. And then also in terms of, oh yeah, there you are, you have socioeconomic class, maybe in terms of like occupation, right? Okay, thank you. Very nice. Ooh, some people are like moving up. Okay, very good. Okay, which of these ethnic groups is not counted? Okay, we had a similar question with Southeast Asians, right? So this one for Pacific Islanders. So identify the one that the US Census does not count as Pacific Islanders. We have 20 seconds. Tongans, Chamorros, Palauans, Tokelauans, Indonesians. Again, the one that is not counted by the US Census as Pacific Islanders, right? And you know the US Census is it has its own rules, and so we can question them, right, later. Which of these ethnic? Okay, poll is locked, and the answer is Indonesians. Very good. You know, Indonesians are in the Pacific, right, Nestor? They are on islands. They're archipelago, right? But the census does not consider them Pacific Islanders. They're Southeast Asians, at least census-wise, right? So Tongans, Chamorros, Palauans, Tokelauans. Very nice, very good people. Majority of you answered correctly. Let's take a look at the leaderboard, right? Very nice, okay, thank you. Cool, all right. With the exception of Hawaii, the US state that has the largest percentage of Pacific Islanders at 1.3% of the state's population is what state? So again, Hawaii is the state with the largest percentage of Pacific Islanders, right? So accepting Hawaii, or only concentrating on the mainland, which state has the largest percentage of Pacific Islanders? And the choices are Washington, Utah, California, Alaska, Nevada. Which one? Washington, Utah, California, Alaska, Nevada. Those states have a lot. So which one has the highest? Some people will say Washington, some people will say Utah. Okay, let's do a reveal. The answer is Utah. Oh, a lot of us think it's Washington or California, right? Utah has the largest has the largest percentage of Pacific Islanders in terms of population in the US, yeah? So it's 1.3%. Nestor, do you know why there's a lot of Pacific Islanders in Utah?
I have some theories.
Yeah, I'm sure they're correct. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think has a lot to do with religion, and I think a lot of the areas there, and so a lot of Pacific Islanders would migrate to areas that that have family member there.
Yeah.
So the predominant religion in Utah is Mormonism.
Mormons, yes. There's a lot of recruitment, right, from the islands. Your theory is correct. Among other things, right? Yeah. And so Utah is also a good destination for a lot of already existing stable communities there of Pacific Islanders, and also institutionally, there's a lot of connection already with the church, for example, right? And other kinds of institutional formations. So yeah, they have the largest. I know a lot of us think that there's a lot of us in Washington, and California is San Jose has a lot of Samoans, you know, so yes, thank you. All right. Monkey is leading the game. And Kathy, Diana, all right. Kimiam, very good, Kimiam. Okay. Pacific Islanders are excessively represented in what area? Excessive representation means representation, okay? Beyond the numerical sort of standard, beyond 1/2, okay? In what area? In amateur and professional football, in the military, in prisons, in poverty counts, or in all or any of the answers specified here. They're excessively represented, meaning that the proportion to their population is over the top, yeah? So amateur and professional football, military, prisons, poverty counts, or all or any of the answers. Ooh, the poll is locked. The answer is all the answers, right? So football, yes, they're excessively represented there. The military, for sure, right? In fact, they're the largest minority group in the military per capita, okay? In prisons and then in poverty counts. Prisons also, there's a whole lot of Pacific Islanders who are either in prison or in any part of the criminal justice system. So maybe imprisoned temporarily or detained, right? And poverty counts most definitely, yes. So these are where, you know, we have a lot of good examples of where they are underrepresented, right? So media, politics, the teaching profession, you know, businesses, right? But these are where they are overly represented, which means that there's a marked skew in the population about the kinds of opportunities that are made available to them, right? Or even the stereotypes that come up when we talk about Pacific Islanders. Thank you. Ooh, okay. Oh, people moving around. All right. Let's go to, I think we have a couple more left. True or false? Persons born in American Samoa are United States nationals, but not United States citizens. True or false? Are they not citizens? Or are they, or is that false? Thank you, Tutui. And it's gonna end soon. Hi, Taylor. All right, poll is locked. Let us reveal. The answer is true. Very good. And I know, I don't mean to say this as if I'm rejoicing. I am not an advocate of citizenship also for certain Samoans. But I also know that that some Samoans are fighting for citizenship, and that this is an indication of the ways in which the US government has differential treatment for its, especially comparing its citizens with the residents of its territories, right? Nestor, I know there's some clarification here about citizenship, right? Because in Utah, they passed a certain law or something, yeah?
Yes, so that's correct. So in Utah, there's been, I guess happened in December where I guess the high court in Utah, I believe, passed or said that US or American Samoa nationals should be classified as US citizens. But that's something that's in the works. It hasn't been recognized federally. It's only been recognized in the state of Utah. And so this allowed people who are US nationals to be part of, I guess, in what's it called, to be, was it public employees, to be like police officers and, you know, part of the government in Utah.
Yeah.
I know the reason, or a lot of the Samoan communities there are trying to push for US citizenships, but I know that a lot of people that live in American Samoa are trying not to push for for US citizenships because that'll deny them a lot of their land rights. But I know in Utah, a lot of the people who are pushing for this are trying to do a third option, which is to give American Samoan people or US nationals citizenship class, but also retaining their rights to land in American Samoa. And so I think those are the, I guess,
Right.
differences within those.
Yeah,
Mhm.
very good. Yeah, because with citizenship comes sort of a threat to their ownership of their own land.
Yeah, because in American Samoa, the land's owned by the chiefs and it's communal land. and under United States Constitution, that's unconstitutional, and no person should be discriminated for owning land according to the U.S. Constitution. But a lot of people living in American Samoa sees as a way to protect their land rights. They don't want their lands to be taken away by foreign people coming in and buying all their lands.
Right.
But in the case of Utah, they're trying to push for U.S. nationals to gain citizenship rights and retain their rights to their lands at the same time.
Thank you for that clarification. So this is a tricky issue that we should not be like immediately judging it whether it's good or bad for American Samoans, right? Okay, thank you. The next one. Is there a next one? Yes. Oh, wow. All right. Thank you. True or false? About 50% of college eligible Pacific Islanders are able to enter college. True or false? 20 seconds. About 50% of college eligible Pacific Islanders are able to enter college. Is that true or is that false? Respond with illumination. Thank you, Taylor, for that nice cover background. All right. Oh, you disappeared. Okay. The answer is true. Pacific Islander students, 50% of them who are college eligible are able. Remember the thing I mentioned in the beginning? We do a good job actually in recruiting a lot of kids who belong to underrepresented populations. The issue here is that not a lot of them graduate though. So there's no there's no such thing as 100% graduation rates for any group, right? But in this case, Pacific Islanders suffered the lowest, next to Native Americans and some Latinos, right? In terms of not being able to graduate. So the lowest retention and graduation rates. So we do a good job in recruiting them, but we do a not so good job in making them continue going to school and eventually graduating. So the answer here is true. They're able to enter college. Very good. Thank you. Wow. All right. Fantastic, everybody. Studies show that AAPI students experience negative campus climate that parallels that of their Black and Latino counterparts. Such a climate refers to what kind of experience? Let's go. Racism, sexism, negative stereotyping, poverty shaming, or any of the answers specified here. Racism, sexism, negative stereotyping, poverty shaming, any of the answers specified here. And you have 10 seconds. Pick the best answer. Locked, yes. And the answer is any of the answers specified here. Thank you. Wow. I don't have to explain a lot of this, right? So these students experience racism, sexism, stereotyping, and of course, poverty shaming, right? Not being able to wear the right clothes for one, yeah? Okay, let's go to the next one. Oh, this is the leaderboard. Wow, Monkey has been leading it all the way. Fantastic job, thank you. All right, name an example of a schooling practice that has proven to be effective in achieving better student outcomes for AAPI students. Give us one. Implementing learning communities, close and intentional mentorship, teaching time management skills, collaborative work among admin, staff, and faculty, or any or all of the answers specified here. You know where I'm going here, yeah? Implementing learning communities, close and intentional mentorship, teaching time management skills, or collaborative work, or any or all of the answers specified here. Oh, I don't see the time. Oh, okay, yes, very good. Everyone said yes. Thank you, everybody. Good job. All of those are great examples of what we can do to enable them to achieve, make meaning in school, right? And I believe that's the last one. Is that the last one? Monkeys winning.
One more.
Oh, we have one more? Okay. In many Pacific Islander families, cannot read. Which social space is considered the most important in their lives? Oh, okay. social space, which is the most important one. Show us. The village, the church, the school, the market, the park. The most important, the village, the church, the school, the market, the park. Very good, Malay Lupe. Thank you. The park. Oh, I know. Yes, there are two correct answers here, though. The village and the church. I know. Nobody said the park, though. And look at school. Yeah, I know. But yeah, I guess a piece of information that teachers and advisors and administrators should know, right? The village and the church are very important spaces for Pacific Islanders. We should respect that, right? And not blame the church for doing bad in school, right? And stuff like that. I think that's kind of unfair for Pacific Islander students to hear, right? Okay.
And also wanted to add to, I think the reason why, because I know we struggled on which one was the right answer for this, is
Yeah.
I know the village can be interpreted in different ways.
Yeah.
A lot of Pacific Islanders, the village is considered family. Because basically everyone you live in the village with are your close relatives.
And the village includes the church.
Yep, and sometimes your church is made up of that village.
Correct. Yeah, I know. Nestor and I were arguing about this when we were practicing. But yeah, he and I are correct. It's the church and the village, right? But definitely not the school and the market and the park. Not the market, yeah. I believe that's the last one, right? Monkey. Oh my gosh, 2 winners. Thai, monkey. Oh, true or false? Some Pacific Islanders, oh, this is just a giveaway, are naturally immune from the coronavirus. I know, this is just, if anybody is wrong about this, then we must be educating ourselves even in better ways. Yeah. I know. You know why? Because my grandpa told me this. That's the only reason why. And I said, no, grandpa. Definitely no one is immune from the coronavirus, right? Well, I know. According to my grandpa, some animals are. Well, the coronavirus came from the animals, right? Anyway, yes. So this is just thank you everybody for being right about this, right? It's a Thai monkey. True or false? Social isolation during a pandemic lockdown is something that many AAPIs do not have trouble dealing with. Again, for my grandpa, right? Because we asked him, hey, grandpa, are you okay with social isolation? And he says, I have no trouble dealing with it. And the answer is, it's just some kind of, like false impressions in a pandemic, right? That many sort of social workers and responders deal with on site. Hala, see, some people said true. Like we're used to social isolation. No, it is something that affects all groups, right? Social isolation. Any group that's socially isolated, of course, they will have trouble dealing with, right? And it's not like negative per se, but it's something that we need to keep an eye on, right? Okay, the leaderboard. Oh, still Thai. Very nice. Good job, people. Fantastic. The pandemic has caused many AIPI communities to be victims of primarily what? Okay, this one may be a little bit more specific, right? Hate crimes, elderly deaths, poverty, church closures, or ignorance. Which ones are they? Which of these are they a victim primarily of? Hate crimes, elderly deaths, poverty, church closures, or ignorance? And the answer is hate crimes. Very good. Well, not very good, but well, I try not to listen to the news all of the time, but yes, this is something that was in the headlines the other day, especially Asian Americans, yeah, even in the state of Washington. So yes, hate crimes, definitely something that we need to keep an eye on and sort of have our legislators focus on. All right, leaderboard. Kathy has now eclipsed monkey. Very nice, everybody. I believe that is the very last question. Oh my gosh, there's one more. There's a widespread perception that AAPIs are not Americans. Instead, they're oftentimes considered to be what? Show us. Friends, immigrants, foreigners, temp workers, or refugees. AAPIs as a group, okay? Instead, they're oftentimes considered as what? Friends, immigrants, foreigners, temp workers, or refugees. The answer is any of these, right? Except friends. I know this is from a poll, though. So.
Oh wait, sorry, I think I did the wrong thing for that. The answer.
I think the answer is foreigners. Yeah.
I don't know why I did that.
Okay. You know what? The others are also true, and friends don't come up high in the poll anyway. So feel free to bring Hello Kitty. Yes. Okay. Leaderboard. Wow. Oh, so this is the end. There's that big confetti. All right, Kathy. Congratulations, Kathy. You are the best among all of us. Thank you, everyone, for participating. So I'm gonna end this by doing a little wrap up, and then we're gonna open it to Q&A. Yeah, Nestor, can you go back to the slide, please? So what do we learn from this game? Yeah, that's all. I'm just gonna summarize that, and then we're gonna open it up. Yeah. So I think the slide after that. Yes. Okay. So some key takeaways from the game is that we need to find out who our students are. What does their ocean look like? Where do they come from? What are their histories in connection with larger US society? What kinds of stereotypes and false impressions do they get? What does their ocean look like, right? So how do they navigate their world? So that's a big sort of suggestion in terms of how do you begin transforming the school. Find out first, and if you're a student, find out who you are and your people, right? This can be very data driven, just like what we experience in terms of the game, but also culture driven, because a lot of information from data will not be as deep and as specific or as nuanced, right? As opposed to when we ourselves get to know the cultures of these students that we're dealing with, right? So in this case, for Pacific Islander students, what is their ocean? What does that look like? The second one is that think about how does the ocean navigate the students, right? So again, this is sort of a reflection on the world of the students. How do the schools imagine them, right? So if the first one is learning about the students, the second was to learn about the environment, right? Learning about the school, learning about the home, learning about the community. The school as identities. A lot of us think that schools are just stages, right? Or theaters, or like receptacles, or sort of like things that don't have any character or identity. And in the book, a lot of the students talk about the schools having a particular racial identity, right? A particular kind of attitude about how they treat them, right? The students, and a particular set of assumptions about how they imagine their students to be. And then the last one is how do we teach the student? And this one is like at least implied in the entire talk that I gave today and also in the book, that when we think about teaching the students, we should give students a big hand in teaching all of us. It's not just this one-way process of transforming the school. It's about learning from what the students bring into the classroom, especially for groups that are that we are ignorant of, right? We have a lot of things to learn from them. We can do a lot of collaborative work with them, enable them to make connections between the classroom and their real lives. Again, as I said in the beginning, utilize their funds of knowledge, right? In terms of curriculum and pedagogy, it's like they know pedagogical strategies from their own communities as well. And also students who are underrepresented, they need to discover themselves in their school, right? They need to find meaning in their schooling. So our job as teachers or even as colleagues or even co-students is to help them find meaning in their schooling. And in that sense, they will also help us find our meaning in our schooling. So again, don't look at schools not as, don't look at schools as factories, right? Or skills training centers, but instead schools as places where discovery happens and meaning making happens, right? The world is larger than ourselves when we go to the school. So that's the biggest that's the oceanic way of thinking about schools in the ways that my students talked about it in the book. So that, sort of those are the key takeaways. We call them the oceanic ways of dealing with both school success and school non-success, right? And so the key thing here is to, again, do it outside of the box. It's like, don't think in terms of conventions and traditional practices. Instead of blaming students, let's try to repair the schools instead of always focusing on repairing the students, right? The students may be okay. It's just that the school is not okay, right? And that I learned from the students. That's not even from me. It's like, it's something that I learned a lot from my interactions with the students. Okay, I want to leave some time for some Q&A. And so there you go. Let us talk. So Nestor, how do we do this? They can just raise their hand or unmute, yeah.
Feel free to unmute yourself. You should all be able to unmute yourself if you want to talk. And if you're uncomfortable, you can use the chat function as well. And then one of the moderators can read out your questions.
Yeah. So if you can have us, you can take us out of the screenshot so that we can see everybody. And you can ask me anything or make a comment or whatever you want to find out. You can ask anything about the book because I drew from that a lot. I'm just reading the chat, yeah. Oh, the evaluation form, thank you. Yes, good job, Kathy, and great job, Monkey. Thank you for playing. It's okay. It's okay to have a moment to reflect. I think I spoke too quickly, but
Hey, Dr. Bonus, I have a question.
Hi, Deborah.
What was your favorite part of writing this book?
Favorite part of writing the book? I guess it has to be the chapter on the mentorship programs. It's called the Pacific Islander Partnerships in Education, because that was the seedbed for writing the book, actually. That's what the students and I kind of talked about. Like, a school administrator asked us, what do you guys want, right? And then the students and I looked at each other and we said, can you give us a moment? We need to think about this. Because the school administrator was ready to give us money. And then we thought that, oh my gosh, we have to be very, very wise and careful about this, right? And so we said, okay, we want to study together. And I think one of the students came up with that to sort of get rid of this stereotype that said that Pacific Islanders are not interested in studying. And so he thought this should be the first thing we should do, is to tell them that we not only study, but we want to study better. And so that was the beginning of a studying together. We call it study tables, right? That was the beginning of saying, we want to study with each other because we find it hard to study alone. And so that began study tables. So at first we thought, Pacific Islander Mentorship Program, but the acronym of that would have been PIMP.
Oh God.
So we need to change that. So we devised this name. We decided to include the word partnership in it because we want to get rid of the hierarchies involved in mentors mentoring mentees, right? but
Mhm.
instead make it like at least a level playing field. It's like mentees can mentor, mentors as well, right? And so
Mhm.
yeah, so that's my favorite part of the book because it was kind of serious but also comical, and it's kind of like, and it has lasted for a long time. When I was writing it later on, I felt like, oh my gosh, it's like we're 10 years old already, like that. And
Yeah.
it's like yesterday. And then a lot of happy memories. We celebrated birthdays in Pipe. My birthday was always celebrated in Pipe. We had little parties. We had dramatic moments in Pipe. I would yell at them at some point. They would yell back at me. I always scolded them for like gossiping during Pipe. And then later on, I thought, oh, well, part of the function of Pipe is actually to do social interaction, right? And so, yeah, so students reminded me, hey, study tables for us does not mean serious studying only. It's also about interacting with each other and talking about, like personal lives and, like personal issues. That's part of going to school, right? And
Mhm.
so, yeah, so I learned a lot from that, from that experience, and I continue to learn. I know that there are other questions. Thank you,
Thank
Deborah.
you. Thank you.
How long did it take you to write the book, Janisha? Okay, hi, Janisha. How are you? The study itself was more than 10 years, just doing the study because I kept on postponing the writing. The writing maybe took like 3 years and in different spurts, right? Because I was busy with other stuff. But some chapters were written more quickly than others. And so the chapter that was hardest to write was the dropout chapter, the chapter that's called Those Who Left, because it's very sad. It's all about departure. It's about leaving school and feeling sad about it, right? But at the same time arguing that we learn a lot of valuable lessons when students leave school, especially when you talk to them, those who have left school, right? And so that chapter contains a lot of criticisms about the failure of school. That's why they left, right? So the chapter sort of makes a very, very strong claim about, to stop blaming students from leaving school. Actually, the schools are the ones to be blamed. It's like the canary in the mine pit, right? You don't blame the canary for dying because of noxious fumes in the mine pit, right? You blame the mine pit for creating the toxic environment that made the bird die, right? And so it's the same metaphor. It's like, why are you blaming students for leaving school? It's not their fault. It's actually the school's fault. So that was sort of like the hardest part to write because it's a very sad. I was crying all the time, as I was revising. I even cry every time I read it right now. And so it's like, I'm kind of dramatic that way. What are the ways faculty, from Kathy, what are the ways faculty and staff can support AAPI students during this pandemic while being mindful of bias, stereotype, and assumption? Yeah, you know what? There's so many ways. Connecting with them would be one. That's what I would advise. And then when we do our connection, we should bear in mind that we should hear them out first, right? And not start from assumptions or stereotyping or any kind of bias. It's like very simple stuff, even like, how are you doing? Um, how do you think can I help you, right? Instead of assuming that we have all the answers, it could be a conversation, right? What AANAPISI does is fantastic because it's like even in a moment of lockdown during AAPI month, it's like you have all sorts of activities, right? You can have from 5 to 50 people in those events. They're all valuable because they keep us together, even or despite being online, right? What advice do you have for people who are interested in publishing a book? For Malay Lupe, yeah, talk to me. Yeah, sure, go for it. I've always wanted to share my stories in a novel. Absolutely. Um, Novels, I think, are a different breed, right? Than an academic book. Academic books tend to be like, it follows like dominant culture rules, right? You have to be reviewed by anonymous people, all these things. You have to pass through like, editorial boards that have a certain idea about whether the book will sell or not, right? And so we're beholden to those kinds of things. Novels are a different breed. I'm not saying it's easier, but I'm saying it's a different process But yeah, we can talk later about your interest in publishing a book. That's a fantastic idea, and I think it's we need more, people like us to be represented, right? Southeast Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, especially. Yeah. Has writing from May? Hi May. Has writing the book brought up more questions for you to explore? Yes, absolutely. It's like the book represents maybe like only 20% of the data that I collected, and so there's a whole lot more in the work. Yeah, I mean, when I started thinking about the book, I had like 38 ideas. Yeah, 38 chapters. And because of the sheer volume, I mean, I interacted with the students a lot, and I didn't even record every little detail. But for the ones that I recorded, there's just so many other things. There's religion is not at all discussed in the book, and so that's one thing that I want to write about. LGBT issues are not at all written about in the book. There's a lot of those issues, especially with some of the students that I interacted with. Disability issues are not there. There's a lot of missing items in the book that I wanted to write about, but I was given, my editor said 100,000 words, Rick, that's all. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I mean, we're bound by certain kinds of publishing parameters, right? I mean, they won't allow like, a book that's more than, 300 pages long because they believe that they won't sell. So what types of, from Yesenia, hi Yesenia, what times of, what types of actions do you suggest schools should take to reduce the failure of students? Listen to the students, I think. That's the biggest one. For example, why does UW accept many students when their own students struggle to make it in their chosen major? Correct. The competition is, you're right. I agree with you, Yesenia, completely. I have voiced this out myself as a member of the faculty, and I was completely ignored most of the time. I have trouble with the 210 credit limit, right? I think administrators tend to think of students who want to stay longer in school as students who are wasting taxpayers' money. And I always think staying longer in school is a sign that the student continues to be interested. Why are we even punishing that student, right? A student who wants to take more than enough credits, for example, in a STEM field or even in a non-STEM field, why are we limiting that student, right? And so I understand, schools have very limited sort of resources as well, right? It's not finite resources. So we have to shepherd students away from the school to make them graduate even earlier. But at the same time, many students take time discovering themselves. They want to stay in school to continue discovering and make meaningful connections in schools, right? And so you're right. I agree with you, is that we tend to practice schooling in ways that deter the meaningfulness of experiences of so many other students who have a different attitude about school other than getting a diploma from it, yeah? Hi, Ruben, how are you? Do you have an intended audience for the book? I have a general, the prompt for my editor was to write it for those who are interested in ethnic studies, education, Asian American, Pacific Islander studies. But if you read the book, and Ruben, you've read some parts of the book, I'm sure. So it's not, I don't do a lot of heavy theorizing. I try not to do a lot of heavy theorizing. But I also identify myself as a scholar. And so I'm okay with doing that in terms of theorizing, but I don't do a lot of it, which means that my gauge for this is if my mom can read the book and tell me that, she gets it, right? And so, we'll see, right? But at the same time, there's no specific intended audience. I mean, there's a general sense of what the audience was. I was also thinking about the students I wrote about. I wanted them to read the book. And so that's also my intended audience. And I wanted my friends, other professors to read the book as well. And so it's a whole net. It's a wide net, yeah? From Jessica, I know you said the category of SEA was fluid, but would you say that Burmese is a part of that categorization? I've been reading a lot of articles about Southeast Asians, and I haven't seen much representation about Burmese. I know, Jessica, we've talked about this. In many groups, there are what we call the severely underrepresented groups, right? The ones who get lost in the mix. And Burmese is an example of that, especially because the US, for one, right, has had a very complicated relationship with not only the Burmese state, Myanmar, but also like the aftermaths of several sort of wars, secret and otherwise, that we have been engaged with in that area of the world. And so there's not a lot of popular imagination about Burmese. There's not a lot of knowledge out there. There's a lot of ignorance. And so I would encourage you to sort of lead the fray in terms of like writing about, that's what encouraged me to write about Filipino Americans many years ago, because a group of us thought, oh my gosh, nobody writes about us. And so we sort of like set on this mission to educate ourselves, to be scholars, to produce knowledge about our people. Same things with Pacific Islanders. I always encourage students to be knowledge producers, right? Whether as students or as professors later on, because we cannot be trusting other people to write about us, for example, but we also want to put our voice out there, right? We are members of a larger community. We're also knowledge producers, right? We're also scholars. We're students and scholars. And so your hunch is right. Not a lot of Burmese are written about. There's not much representation, but we should not continue sort of ignoring or devaluing them or not considering them as relevant material for study, right? I've had professors before who used to tell me, why are you writing about Filipinos? They're not, how important are they, right? Very insulting, yeah? And so that even enraged me, and enrages a lot of people. And so that in itself is a motivation, I guess, or an inspiration to do something for your people. And so I'll applaud you if you do. I mean, a lot of people will applaud you if you do that. So think about that for sure. Yeah. I want to go back and see if I missed other people. You ordered the book. Thank you. Thank you, Harrowbrook. I want my prize to be eating. Is that Korean barbecue? With you all when we can. Oh, wow. Taylor, you're naturally immune. Very nice. Okay.
I have a question, Rick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you run a lot of mentorship programs. And so as being a part of an AANAPISI program, and being grant funded, we're supposed to determine what is success. We're supposed to show that we're a very successful program. And so for a lot of the programs that you run, how did you define success in your programs?
Yeah, they also, our funders always asked us for grades, right? Like before and after grades. And every time they asked us, I have refused to give them grades because I told them that is not the way we want the program to run. The program is not about raising grades per se. I mean, of course, we want students to raise their grades, right? But at the same time, we don't want to sort of continue with that practice of sort of using numbers to determine success. And so we self-defined what we meant by success. We did that by doing little journal entries, little evaluation entries that we offered as ways to find out whether we were attaining our goals or not. And we gave that to our funders, right? And so these are eventually reports that detailed in narrative form, not in grades, but in narrative form, the different definitions of success in school that students experienced or were transformed right? And I know it's a little bit tricky because funders really like looking at numbers. So I made some general gestures about, well, the students are staying in school, right? So we're keeping up with their retention, right? These students are graduating, right? I just didn't want them to assume that we are just like any other sort of program that relies on grades as mechanisms for determining whether students are successful or not. I think that grades are not good indicators on some level of whether a student is successful or not. And so I try not to do that, right? I try not to submit. Well, I've never submitted grades to our funders, to the people, to the office that funded us. Yeah. I asked them to observe us too, so that they can see with their own eyes and ears, what we do. So yeah, there are many different ways that you can sort of gauge success of a mentorship program like ours. And you can suggest that to the people who you are accountable to, I think. I don't know, is that answering your question, Nestor?
Yes, thank you.
I know we're kind of defiant in some ways. I think you have to show defiance every now and then instead of just following the rules, because administrators will always say, well, we need grades. We need before and after grades, before the mentorship started and after the mentorship started. And to me, I would scratch my head in front of them. And it's like, why is that even a good indicator for you, right? I mean, grades are just grades, they're numbers, right? You don't know how the students actually performed in that class, right? I'm not saying that grades are stupid things. They're not. It's just that they're only one indicator of so many other things you can consider, right? And if you focus too much on that, you might not get the whole picture, right? Or you will not get the whole picture. And so I'd rather do qualitative evals. Students have fun writing them, actually. And they're very honest, I mean, they'll say, I'll ask them questions like, what do you think did not work well in this mentorship program, right? And what do you think worked well? And so to me, those are better indicators rather than giving them some kind of like a number scale, if they improved from a 2.8 and now they're like a 3.2. And so to me, it's like, that's kind of uninteresting and not really telling us a whole lot of things, right? I know I'm a teacher of a big class and many of my students are in this event. And so we do a lot of grading there, yes, but that's because that is required from all of us, right? But in a mentorship program, I think you can get away with, or other kinds of programs, you can get away with not focusing too much on grades. Yeah.
I have one more question too, if that's okay.
Yes, that's okay.
Faculty, what advice would you give to other faculties, especially at Highline College or any other institution, on ways that they can best help support students, the Southeast Asian students and Pacific Islander students?
Yeah, I have a couple of suggestions. I mean, it's hard, when faculty is already busy with teaching and preparing for class. My biggest suggestion would be one thing that the students ask me to do, which is to visit them in their school organization, student organization activities. I think your eyes as a teacher get to be open to a whole lot of a world that's different, or that has changed ever since you were a student. And also listening to the students is very important because one tends to assume a lot of things without listening to what students will say or can say, right? So visiting students during the, outside of the classroom, I think is very important for teachers who want to support students. And then also making sure that when you support students, you don't take over. Many times I catch myself, like when I'm attending a student org meeting, I catch myself telling them what to do. And I stop myself when I do this because that's not my space. I'm just being invited to observe. And if they ask my opinion, I will give it to them. But I'm not gonna go there, like suggest something that's like uncalled for, right? Or they didn't ask. It's like unsolicited. Why would you give unsolicited, like suggestion? I think that's very insulting. And so as a teacher, I'd rather listen first, right? I'd rather be there to listen to them and to observe them. With PIPE, for example, our mentorship program, all of our rules were invented by students. I maybe advise them on certain things, but every time there's an idea, like one student director would tell me, hey, we're interested in inviting a professor to give a talk on getting a job in the STEM field. So yeah, of course, yeah, sure. You know, I mean, they determine their own agendas. I mean, I may be the faculty director, but I don't set the terms. I don't set the agenda. If they don't want study tables on Monday, that's their call. That's not mine, right? I will scold them if they go overboard, maybe. You know, like, you're not attending to it. You know, what's going on, right? Of course, I'm still the older person, right? But yeah, as teachers, if you want to support students, you cannot be their leader. I mean, that is a kiss of death, because that's like not only terribly insulting to students, but it's also like, that's not your role. Your role is to give advice. You're not there to take over. And I see that mistake every now and then. It's like students taking over a student's organization. I mean, a teacher taking over a student's organization. I think that's not good practice, right? It's not their time and it's not their space. The teacher already has the students in the classroom, right? If you go to a club meeting, that's not your space, right? So you should shut up. I think, I don't know, which I do, right? Thank you. Yes, respecting student spaces is very important to me, because I think that, you know, teachers already have good breaks. Students are still struggling, you know, so.
Bonus, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
What happened to the students in the book? Like, where are they now? Have you talked to them, or you still chat with them, or
Yes,
did they just are gone?
I do. Almost everyone checked me during the first week of lockdown. It's like, wow, this is like a all of a sudden. Yes, I do. They're very sweet. 3 or 4 of them are professors, actually, like me. Right?
Dang.
I know, they're crazy. They're like, you know, they're great. They're following in my footsteps. That's nice. A lot of them are already graduated, right? A lot of them still have very strong criticisms about our school.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them keep alive, you know, a lot of the things that we learned, right? The ocean, you know, it's going to be a permanent part of our lives. And so people like you and Nestor, who are parts of the book, I mean, I still see you, and Taylor and all these other people I see. I mean, yeah, it's like, we missed our celebration in the coming out party for the book because of the pandemic. But, you know, we're going to do it at some point, right? Let me see. I have some students I haven't seen in a long time, and they suddenly appear every now and then into my life, which is fantastic. Like, you know, they'll say, oh, somebody told me that, you know, your little book is out. Because they've been teasing me before that the book is taking so long to write, right? And so finally it's here, and it's like, yes, you know, when I finally have my own children, your book comes out too, right? And so that's kind of sweet. So yeah, and I always tell them, look for yourselves in the book, because all of them are, what do you call that? Aliased? No, what do you call that when somebody's on an alias? All of them are anonymously named. There you go. Or they have like names that are somehow attached. They can detect who they are, actually, because I just mixed up letters, right?
Ruben says pseudonyms.
Pseudonyms, thank you, Ruben. Ruben is going to be a professor soon. Ruben is finishing up his PhD in education at UCLA, right?
Yay, Ruben!
The school that I the school I did my undergrad at UCLA, so he's actually like my comeback person. We'll have a parade on your book, yes. What was I saying? Yeah, anonymous. And so they'll say, hey, is this one me? And I'm like, who do you think it is? And some of them are very I mean, if you're that person, you will immediately recognize who you are, because I tell stories of, like, unique stories of my unique experiences with the students, and so they can easily locate themselves, which is fun, actually. I think Donna, I think, knows who she is in the book, and so yeah, and Isaac and others. Thank you for presenting. Thank you, thank you. Please don't forget to complete the eval, right? Because we are funded in this event, right? And so yes, please. And Nestor, where is the eval? Can you or whoever do it in the chat again? Because it's been a long way already.
Yes, I
Yeah, thank
believe
you.
Lupe will post it again. And in
Okay.
the interest of time, I think we have enough time for just one more question.
One more.
I
Okay.
know
How
some of us
many?
have to leave, and so I just want to say thank you all for coming and appreciate your support. And so yeah, oh, there it is. Thanks. So there's the.
Oh, thank you,
link.
Malay. Thank you, Lupe.
We have enough time for one more question.
One more. I know. Thank you to my students who came. Wow. Rodrigo. Yesenia. Camille. Hi, Camille. How are you? I didn't even see you. Wow. Camille is a graduate student from UW too, in education.
Oh, and if you have any comments that people want to share too as well, that's fine.
I know. Thank you. I hope you enjoy reading the book too. Hi, Camille. Thank you for the shout out. Yes, of course. And Nikki, I think I know Nikki from somewhere.
It's nice to see you, Dr. Bonus.
Thank you. Nice to see you too. If you missed out on the other sessions from this month, you can check them. Oh, really? You have them on the site? Cool. Fantastic.
Is this where they will be, the recordings will be too?
Yes, that is correct. So Lupe posted the link to where all the previous recordings for all 30, well, not all 30, but for most of the recorded workshops that we were able to record, they'll be listed at that website. And then, if you weren't able to make it, you can access them there.
Shout out to all of you. Oh my gosh, you did so many events for this month. It's amazing. That's fantastic. You gave a lot of people less anxiety about social isolation because of these things, among other things, at the very, very least. Because it's like, I remember going to the Toka one and it's like, I don't feel as isolated right now, like that, which is fantastic. Thank you, Taylor, for that good background shout out. Fantastic. Thank you. Taylor is a star subject of the book. And also Deborah. Deborah is like, Deborah, can you see yourself in the book? Can you identify yourself? You can, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you attended Nikki's earlier panel, please complete that evaluation. Yes, thank you. Catherine, Yesenia, Kimia, Mixilla, Diana, Janisha. How are you, Janisha? Edwina, you're there. I see you. How are you?
Hi, Uncle Bonus. I'm sorry for coming late, but I'm doing good. It's nice to be here.
Good to be with you too. All right.
Right, everyone. Thank you so much for participating in our workshop and for attending and participating. Thank you for those of you who've been consistently coming to all the workshops that we've been holding for the month of May. And so we appreciate all the support and the love and for sharing all your knowledge. And so this concludes our workshop. So thank you again, and stay healthy out there, and we hope to see you all via Zoom or some other event soon. So thank you all and take care.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Bonus, for your words of wisdom.